This is the Final Word Daily. India-Australia, fourth test in Ahmedabad. Jeff Lemon and Adam Collins, who has to tell you all about day 3 in the space of 30 seconds.
In the end, it felt a lot like day 1 in terms of the scoreline. Australia kept India. I say kept India. They should have done better, I reckon. 3 for 253, but that reflects how well Australia bowled in the middle of the session especially, and also just how extraordinarily well Shubman Gill batted, racing to his first century in India. Had support from Cheteshwar Pujara, who made 42. Kohli, who passes 50 for the first time in India against Australia for 16 innings in over a decade. They get to 191 behind by the close of play, 3 for 289, which means that India, if they wish, can push the game ahead tomorrow. They've laid a foundation.
Also the first time in 16 innings all up that Kohli's passed 50. It's been more than a year since he crossed 50 in the format, a couple of 40s. He's made a start in 14 of those 16 innings, only 2 single-figure scores. But people talked about the 100 drought. The 50 drought was also starting to mount.
Yep.
So he's got past that. And we might as well start there because that's what people are going to be thinking about when they resume tomorrow. And I'm sure if he gets to 100, then automatically all of the people who don't like the way he goes about things will say, it doesn't count, flat track, whatever. And if he doesn't get there, they'll say that that's even more reason that he's no good. But he's still there. He's past 50 not out. He looks good for the entire innings that he played, aside from the first 4 balls just before the break. Inside edge that nearly carried to short leg, outside edge that nearly carried to slip. And then pretty much everything after that, he was calm and in control. Yeah,
my sense at tea was he's a bit rusty, and that's not an unreasonable conclusion. Because he's been really unlucky through the series, he hasn't been able to play a long innings. And talking to Ravi Shastri about it today, he's one of many Indian players who don't play domestic red ball cricket. So there is you made the point a couple of weeks ago that just because you're on a flat track doesn't mean that it's going to come easily to you. And I think Kohli's experiencing that at the moment. But he had a chance.
Especially if you haven't been playing on them up to that point. Yeah. So if you played on 3 flat tracks in a row, then you're much more likely to be able to really take toll of the conditions.
Yeah, and Jared Kimber's analysis on his Substack that went into the decline in Indian averages over the last 3 years as the pitches have become more and more challenging, it all stands to reason. In saying all of that, I probably want to qualify my first comment about India could have done better today. If they wished, they could have been more aggressive, but the other side of it is 37 degrees, and now borrowing from Harsha this time, you're playing the conditions as much as you're playing your opposition side. You've got to try and make sure that as a batting team, you can stay cool, stay collected, and that is managing the way you go about your acquisition of runs. And they did so in a pretty methodical way. 1 for 91 in the first session, which included Shubman and Rohit really going after Mitchell Starc to begin. I think they struck 4 boundaries in the first 3 Starc overs, something like that. A 6 from Rohit over deep backward square. When they set the trap for him, he's like, I don't care, I'll just hit it into the crowd, doesn't bother me.
I don't care. Honey Badger don't care. Honey Badger is also Rohit Sharma.
Like the Rohit Sharma of one-day cricket, when they always set 2-man back and he always hit 6s with that booming hook/pull shot of his. So they were all set. Then Rohit gets out. It's probably the only moment of the day when Indian fans threw their head back in dismay because it was a half-tracker. And so did he. A half-tracker from Kuhnemann, or near enough, placed to Marnus Labuschagne. I was kind of stunned that Labuschagne took it because he takes the tough ones and sometimes can drop the easy ones, but he made no mistake there. Kuhnemann gets in the book.
Funny shot, back foot punch. He sort of just hanging back and just pops it in the air, and on commentary at the time I was like, I'm pretty sure he's caught that, but it just looked like the sort of shot that should have gone on the bounce. It was like, no, he's actually out here.
Had the double take, didn't you?
Yeah, you had to think about it because it just looked so easy and so simple that you thought, well, he couldn't have just hit that straight to him. That's not what would have happened.
Just misjudged it.
Rohit Sharma bashes the bat into his pad and you're like, okay, he is out, and off he goes for the long.
It's like one of those caught and bowls where it kind of a player gets squared up and they end up like defending it back to the
chipping it back.
Yeah, chipping it back. That's how it felt. That's why it took a while to register what had happened. But then, Shubman paced his innings really well, gets to 50 with this glorious shot to get there. And the way that he played after that was that he kind of dragged it back a gear. It felt like he was of the view that he wanted to bat all day and he wanted to make sure that he got the monkey off the back about making a century at home. Did so just before tea with that kind of, I guess it was a sweep shot of sorts over his left shoulder.
It was a sweep shot of sorts, yeah. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I don't think he was trying to play it that fine. He was trying to play it a little squarer, but he did deliberately get down on one knee and look to come up underneath it and lift it. It's just that it was up near the splice of the bat, and so it went very fine and ended up rolling away for 4.
He's so fine.
But the field they had to him at that point when Murphy's bowling, it was 7-2, 7 on the leg side.
You wish you were mine. Oh, yeah.
7-2 leg side field.
A lot of that today.
What's going on with that?
A lot.
When Murphy's bowling, they've got like a leg slip in, they've got a short leg, they've got mid wicket, they've got like 3 out in the deep. They have literally backward point and a sort of wide mid off on the offside, and that was it. Asked Daniel Vittori about it after play, and he said it was from watching Ashwin. They were like, well, we thought we want to encourage, like, what if we try to get players sweeping and what if we bowl around about leg stump? They were thinking about the green dismissal, which Ashwin said was an accident. But they were thinking, well, what if we target that as a plan? What if we try to, because everybody's going to want to play that when you're bowling it out there. They'll think, I just need to get something on it. And in the end, Shubman Gill did just get something on it. But it was interesting the way it worked. Lyon was bowling with a more regular off-spinners field. And at the other end, the other off-breaker is coming around the wicket and bowling out, not outside leg stump, but sort of at leg stump with all those fielders in place.
Yeah, it's a reminder that Murphy's a very different bowler to Lyon as well. Like, we keep seeing examples of this. Where Murphy bowled around the wicket, and he bowled a lot more over the wicket actually, Murphy, compared to usual, and Lyon changed angles fairly regularly too, and that was in Smith's captaincy as well. He was proactive. He did.
Oh, I thought you said Ian Smith's captaincy.
That would be cool.
Was he out there?
That'd be cool. If Smithy was here, I'd love to see him. But no, the way that Smith was willing to, he described it to us between Test matches as a game of chase the ball. So wherever the ball went, he'd place a fielder. And like
which they've criticised captains for forever, mind you.
Yeah, but he was doing it in a way that was trying to get in ahead of Pujara last week at Indoor.
Right.
So we saw a little bit of that today with Pujara. As you say, the 7-2 field, round the wicket, giving him all of the offside to work with, occasionally scoring runs in that direction. But for the most part, the patience required in that middle session, it reminded me a little bit, you've got to squint at it, but it reminded me a little bit of A.B. de Villiers and Hashim Amla at Port Elizabeth in 2018 when they had to get through a session of reverse swing from Hazelwood and Cummins mostly, I think it was, and it was top-notch reverse swing. And they got through it because they made the decision they simply weren't going to get out. There were like 45 runs scored in that session.
Yeah, was it Elgar batting with Amla in that session?
I think it was Elgar and de Villiers, because it was de Villiers' skill to get through
that's
it.
Right. And Amla batted for part. Yeah, they were all involved.
They were all involved, and the point is that sometimes you just have to accept the other side's bowling well to you, and India made a good call of when they went, when they didn't, when they pushed, when they pulled, and I'm just so happy that Shubman Gill is another 23-year-old delivering on the promise. There is so many expectations of him. Shastri said today he'll be the next captain of India. Big call, but I love it. I suppose that's on the basis that Rohit will do it for a fair while now. He's relatively new to the job. But, the idea of Shubman, big, tall, graceful player, so assertive through the offside, shimmies down the track with the best of them. He's got the white ball shots. We saw that double ton he made in one-day cricket recently. He opened up the offside inside 20 minutes this morning. His front foot's going out to mid-wicket to open up the offside. Now, you would never see that from a guy who's been brought up purely on a diet of red ball cricket, but it's working for him right now. And I do feel like this will be a bit of a monkey off the back moment because he has struggled in India today.
124 in a T20 as well recently. That's India's highest score in a T20.
And that was here.
So he's got the double ton in 50 overs, the highest score in 20 overs. And now his second 100 here, made one in Bangladesh in December, so a couple in quick succession. Despite being left out, you can't imagine he'll be left out again anytime soon. But then again, he is an Indian opening bat, so they do tend to chop and change.
Well, this kind of goes to the point I touched on before about Indian averages declining over the last few years. If pitches are more like last week, and I don't want to get into pitch chatter or some of the comments yesterday, we're not interested. What I'm saying is that if the pitches are like last week, players will continue to find it harder to score runs. It's just a fact. You can't argue with the fact that pitches like this week will be easier to score runs on, and there is a natural bias to turning tracks in India, heavily turning tracks in India right now. Not always, but at the moment they're in fashion. The result pitches, excessively turning result pitches are in fashion. So if they play on pitches more like this, then averages will naturally go up. It's a push-pull thing again.
So Shubman Gill, a Gujarat Titan, becomes a Titan of Gujarat with the 100 today. And I mean, I just want to take a moment for the aesthetics. You know how everybody has that thing where they gush about left-handers in cricket. Oh, left-handers. Oh, they look so much better. Oh, a left-handed cover drive. Oh, la-di-da. He's like the right-handed version of a left-hander. Everything he does looks great. I mean, aside from when he's charging down the track and being clean bowled to one that keeps low. But when he plays, the shots that he's playing, and because everything hit the middle of the bat just about, and he plays unorthodox kind of shots. He stands up and there's an economy of movement. He'll stand up tall and play a little back foot punch that just goes away through cover. He'll do a little one to the other side. That one where he took the ball off the top of the bounce and just punched it to the onside and it went away through wide, long on for 4. Like, how is that possibly going for 4? And then the one he smacks Lyon down the ground over the bowler's head to go from 92 to 96. It was like there were so many shots where when they're played, you go, ooh, and you sit up and you really pay attention.
Yeah, the one he went to 50 on commentary, I called it the cover drive, and again, I'm borrowing a lot from my co-commentators today, but Harsh is like, it's not quite a cover drive. He's up tall, and it's just all timing. And it's not like kind of, trying to think of a comparison, it's not Mark Waugh on the balls of his feet pushing through extra cover with an economy of movement. It's a bit different to that. It's more strength through the forearms.
Yeah.
The bat is more vertical. Horizontal rather.
Yeah.
Get my verticals and horizontals right. It's more
Diagonal.
Horizontal in its shape,
Yeah.
but yet he still manages to hit the ball down. Not like Joe Root hitting it down behind point, but in front of point, in front of point, and it has the same effect as a cover drive. But yeah, his bat speed's so quick, his forearms are clearly so strong, his wrists are so nimble, and his timing's so sweet. Put that together, and I agree with you. He's already one of the most attractive batters in the world to watch.
We were being told the story about how his dad used to throw balls at him in a hallway, and so he didn't have any room on either side, and he had to learn to play it down.
Oh, right.
Shorter balls at the body, learn how to play them down into the ground, and whether that might have been an influence.
I always love those origin stories. If you like stories like that, our friend Steve Kinane wrote a book called First Test about this very thing, about the players, their backyards and what they grew up in and how they developed their game, and it sounds like there should be a chapter on Shubman Gill.
Morné Morkel in the dog pen at the top of his mark, he had to walk one way and then turn around because that was, he grew up in a place where there wasn't enough room. His run-up had to do a U-turn halfway through, which is particularly difficult. So yeah, gorgeous innings from Shubman Gill. Pujara is just does Pujara things, faces 120 plus balls to make 42.
121 to be precise.
There we go.
Always got it written down.
Yeah, almost got it remembered, but not quite. He was coming down the wicket, he played a couple of aggressive shots down the ground, he was ticking off singles coming down the pitch, just doing Pujara stuff, basically coming down to the spin. The same sort of player.
Pujara down the track defends, Pujara down the track kicks away, Pujara down the track clips to mid-wicket. It is just you can almost set and forget on comms when dealing with Pujara. I've got no problem with it. I love Cheteshwar Pujara, but there is a formula he applies to Australian spin.
And it's Murphy, isn't it, who comes around the wicket and gets a little bit more round arm, and he gets one floating in. It turns beautifully directly down the line. It's hitting the middle of middle stump, and this could
Nagpur-esque.
This could preempt Hall of Fame. But the bloody reviewing of batters who are LBW and given out, and they always send it upstairs. Pujara, that's hitting the middle of middle stump. Shubman Gill, that's hitting the middle of middle stump. Both of them send them upstairs. It is such a waste of time, and it's really frustrating me that because they've got 3 reviews in hand, they go, I'll just have a little, why not, have a little flutter at that.
Let's petition
to
get rid of the third review.
Get rid of the second. Bugger it. Give them 1. If you know it's wrong, then you send it up.
Look, I would say that knowing anything definitively when you're the fielding side is very tough. But I think 2 worked well.
Don't send it up.
I think 2 worked well for a long time, and 2 would be a suitable place to readjust it. Remembering the reason we've got 3 is because there's technically a home umpire serving in every test. I think the term home umpire is garbage. That it implies some degree of bias to the home side.
Which it used to be.
It used to be.
Because they used to be amateurs who would just come in and do a test match.
They were appointed by the home board, crucially. Yeah. They're now appointed by the ICC. They're judged by a very strict matrix.
And they're professionalised.
And they're not going to run the risk of losing their job because they grew up supporting one side or another. It's implausible that would happen, notwithstanding some of the gibberish you see on the internet sometimes when they see a decision go away that fans don't like. So I do want to pivot to the Hall of Fame, and that Hall of Fame is for Visit Victoria and Visit Melbourne.
Yes.
And I want to tell you about a little thing that happened today and get into it this way. So, again, my third mention of Harsha, sorry, got to do it. He was talking about his days as a youth disc jockey in the early 80s in India. For those who are from Australia, he was effectively on the Triple J arm of all India radio spinning tracks. So I brought up the charts. He was talking about his favourite Olivia Newton-John songs and all the rest of it. It was very entertaining.
What are they spinning this week on Triple J Nagpur?
Exactly, on all India radio. And I described him as the Francis Leach of India, because of course Francis, friend of ours, performed that role on Triple J. When we were kids growing up, I'll always think of him kind of as a Triple J guy. And Francis, I sent it on to him, and he sent me back the most wonderful thing. He found a puzzle in a market in Castlemaine this morning, and I remember when I went to the Castlemaine market, it must be the most gorgeous place to go on a Saturday morning in all of Victoria. When you visit Victoria and you fly into Melbourne, there is so much to see. You spoke about the fairy penguins at Phillip Island yesterday. Castlemaine is one of these rural towns in Victoria.
About an hour away on the train, hop on the train, hour and a half.
I reckon if that. all of these towns are so reachable these days. It's a glorious place to go, especially on a Saturday morning. Get yourself a jam, get yourself a chutney, get yourself a bacon roll if that's your persuasion. If you're vegetarian, get yourself a halloumi roll. I'm sure they've got both there. I'm one of those. So are you.
I reckon like a spiral sponge with some jam in it. I think they'd have those.
And you can get yourself a Greg Chappell puzzle as well, as Francis Leach did this morning, the Harsha Bogle of Triple J, when he was at Castlemaine Market this morning.
That was a very convoluted lead in. Is it a puzzle? Is it a picture of Greg Chappell?
Yeah, on the front.
Okay.
On the front.
Right.
It's
not
glorious.
like a Greg Chappell Cricket Centre where it's just named after Greg Chappell.
No. This is a picture of, it's an 80s style. It's great.
Shirt on, shirt off.
Clobber on.
Clobber on. Kit,
Old
like
boy
cricket
in.
kit.
Yeah, everything's in. Everything's where it should be.
Sure, okay. But like wearing cricket whites.
Yes, wearing the whites.
Not the
like Kohli did to the press conference at where were we? Dharamshala, the fourth test of 2017 when he wasn't playing. John Terry-esque went into the press conference in his whites.
Right, I see. So not Tony Gregg in the jockstrap.
No, that's right.
A puzzle, if you have a puzzle of that, drop me a line in the DM. Now, the Final Word Hall of Fame, where we pick the most final word moment of the day. Adam, it can only be one thing. It can only be that one of our colleagues, while taking a wander underneath the stadium, out the back here, stumbled upon a little something, a little vehicle, and sent us back a picture, and we said, we need to go and check this out. We found the Modi-mobile, stashed away under the concrete concourse here. We did. And every touring Australian journalist here went down to have a look for themselves.
It was worth it. The vehicle has since been moved. There was an embargo on the photographs until about now, so we could record in there. Unfortunately, it has been posted, and thus the car has been taken away. I'm going to find it though. I still plan on. I'm pretty sure this is the kind of thing Ravi Shastri can do. He said, "Oh, you want the car? We'll get the car." He's that kind of guy. He's a mover and shaker. We do want to get the car back to Australia eventually with the other Batmobile that I own. One thing might lead to another after this. A lot of people back in Australia are wanting to chip in and be part of it, and where there's a will, there's a way, and we'll drop a couple of photos in over the top here so you can see Jeff and me and our colleagues in the Batmobile and waving to the imaginary crowd like the two Prime Ministers did on Morning One.
I think you will be lucky to get it back to Australia because it is 3 days old and it is already falling apart. So when we went down to look at it, it does not look, I'm not going to say it looked good from a distance, but it looked intact from a distance. Up close, it's all this kind of plasticky, like synthetic red carpet spread all over it, and then just staple gunned the shit out of it. They've just, there are hundreds of staples showing. The bat and wicket things at the back are already falling off. One of the bats is missing. The stumps have come loose. The handle things are about to fall over.
Yep.
The whole thing is, to be frank, a shit show. And I'm amazed that they actually sent a couple of Prime Ministers around in it.
Yeah.
It's like a golf, it's not a golf cart body, but it's one of those carts that they drive through the airport to take elderly people to the gates. It's like a long wheelbase golf cart.
I think it actually is the same car we saw on, I think it's that golden, that tiny little golden thing. I reckon they've tarted that up. I reckon they've put the panels
They brought
on.
it into the shop overnight.
They brought it into the shop, yeah. Good from far, but far from good, right? That's what we're looking at here. But it doesn't matter to me. The Batmobile I have is in pretty bad nick as well. It's a 1970 Valiant originally, which they did a similar thing with the panelling. So we're going to work on this on days 4 and 5, and hopefully we can take it into our possession, not just for the final word, but for all of the people who appreciate the glorious absurdity that was Morning One, and the fact that, and cars in cricket, I mentioned it yesterday, I think, on the podcast. We've got to have more cars in cricket. Mm-hmm. We've got to have more people driving around the outfield winning cars at the end of the summer.
Right.
I want the Audi back. I want
you want a self-driving Tesla that that Jason Holder can get locked inside. And someone will have to come around and release him.
All ahead of us. This has been the final word, day 3 at Ahmedabad. If you really like what Jeff and I do, patreon.com/the final word. We have a story time episode that dropped in the podcast feed. I stress it every day. I'm going to keep stressing it because when we finish making these videos,
it hasn't gone out yet.
You haven't put it up yet. You're going to be putting it up pretty soon. It's a very good episode. There are very interesting things in there. Mm-hmm. You can learn about Albie Hapcroft, which is worthwhile.
Sure.
A man who played one Test match in 1924-25, but a fascinating life.
Fascinating story. Could he jump backwards onto a mantelpiece? Find out on the Final Word. Final Word Daily. Jeff Lemon, Adam Collins. We'll see you on day 4. That's how a daily works. See ya.
Good night.